to this month's webinar on organizing and sharing your MasterMine reports. Our presenter today, of course, is Rob Makalak, and I won't keep you guys too long. If you have any questions, post them in your GoToMeeting dialog there in the question area, and either we'll address them live in the webinar, or I'll end up typing you a little answer back. But now I will let Rob take it away. Go for it, Rob.
Thank you so much, Carnegie.
A little long-winded there today.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And actually, there's a little more wind I wanted to suggest, which would be well, I want to encourage people as we go along here to, if you think of other topics, or even if you are right now thinking of different topics that you would like for us to do in our end-user MasterMine series, please let us know about those. Either put them in there as question topics to Carnegie, or answer them in the survey at the end. Answer in the survey at the end, which asks you, are there any topics you would like to know more about MasterMine? And we will certainly consider them for inclusion in this series. This is, as Carnegie mentioned, our monthly end-user MasterMine webinar, and our topic today is talking about organizing MasterMine reports. Now, by organizing, we're talking about where you put Excel workbooks, essentially, because MasterMine reports are all Excel workbooks. And when we talk about reports, of course, sometimes we're actually talking about the workbook itself. Sometimes we're talking about the tabs within a single workbook, since multiple tabs is certainly one easy way to keep a series of reports that have similar meaning, within a single workbook. But if you could sort of think of this hierarchy as on the top being a Windows folder, which can contain, or a Windows folder which actually can have many different folders within it, and then each of those different folders can have many different workbooks, Excel workbooks in it, and then each of those workbooks, of course, can have multiple pages within it. There's really a lot of organizational possibility there as far as arranging things in a way that makes sense. And usually it makes sense also, when you're thinking about this kind of thing, to think it through in advance a little bit. And now, of course, all of you are existing MasterMine users. That means you've already got some MasterMine reports, although I must say that oftentimes when I get online with somebody who's using MasterMine or been using it for a while, they're really keeping all of their MasterMine reports within a single folder in Windows, and don't have a good scheme for handling multiple workbooks, which is especially important, of course, if you're sharing them between different people. So we're going to get into all of that today. Here is our agenda for today. So first off, as I mentioned, first off, I think what I want to talk about is really the idea of templates and reports, and be really clear about what we mean by these things, because templates are not the same in MasterMine as they are, let's say, in Crystal Reports or in the other ways of handling reporting. So we'll talk about templates and reports as concepts. Then we're really going to get into the meat of it, which is our really two areas: our launch dialog, which is the dialog that comes up when you originally bring up MasterMine, and many of you are used to just sort of breezing through there and maybe don't know about the wonderful organizational capabilities that are available in there. And then we'll talk a little bit about having reports deployed on Goldmine taskbars and when that works out best. Finally, at the end, of course, as usual, we will have a free half-hour, a giveaway of a free half-hour online session where we get to go deep with one of our customers and talk with you about how you're using MasterMine, or actually solve some particular issue, really delve into something with you in a half-hour version of what we typically do in a MasterMine support session. Be aware, of course, if you are not the lucky winner of that free giveaway, even so, you can take advantage of our online support capabilities, which through GoToMeeting we can easily share screens with you, write reports with you, manipulate your Goldmine data with you using not just the MasterMine tools, but our years and years of knowledge about how Goldmine works, and so on. So that's my little ad there about MasterMine. So let's go right into talking about templates versus reports. So I'm going to switch over here and we're going to take a look at Goldmine now. What I wanted to do here in this point here, I'm going to skip right to the create dialog. Actually, no, I won't. I'm going to do the launch because I think launch is always the best place to start with MasterMine. Note, however, that it certainly is possible to have a launching mechanism on your Goldmine taskbar that just simply goes straight to the create dialog if you're the kind of user who frequently creates reports, especially for other people. And in fact, at the end here, I will talk about customizing the whole taskbar experience and get at that as well. But so I'm going to the launch dialog mostly just for sort of good form here to indicate that, of course, our create dialog can also be launched. In this case, I'm going to do that because I want to talk about templates versus reports. Okay, so first off, it's important to note, hopefully you know this already, but all MasterMine reports, whether you are creating new ones or launching existing ones, need to be launched through MasterMine. That is, you can't just simply use MasterMine to create Excel workbooks, which you then distribute to other people who don't have MasterMine license and hope that they can open them up. It doesn't really work that way. Now, of course, you can use MasterMine with the snapshotting capability to send people snapshots, but obviously they won't have the full MasterMine functionality built in, and you won't have the automatic refresh while it opens and all the rest of that stuff. That said, MasterMine workbooks themselves are self-contained in that when you've got a MasterMine report that has, let's say, a pivot table in it or several different tabs that have pivot tables on them, and those, refresh against the Goldmine data as they come up, so you're not sort of stuck with whatever the export was that somebody did some time ago. That's one of the big values of having MasterMine, is this refresh ability. All of that is built into the Excel workbook. And what's important about that is if I go to save a workbook to another person using Save As in Excel, and then I tell that person, hey, this, I've saved this workbook in this location. You can open that up using using the open dialog, navigate to it, for example. When they open it up, it is capable of refreshing and doing all the stuff that a MasterMine workbook can do. That people sometimes, I think, don't realize that all of that sharing mechanism is all just built into there, and that an Excel Save As, essentially the same as you're already familiar with, an Excel Save As really can multiply out the possibilities with that workbook that you started. So think of, and I'm saying this really kind of to set the stage for what I'm going to get into today, think of your existing knowledge about working with and sharing Excel workbooks as being very applicable to this topic. So file save as in Excel is the same as it ever was for everybody. The difference, one of the differences, MasterMine actually notes where you save your workbooks to, so that it can later on show you in the launch dialog, hey, here's all the places where you've saved reports to, and help you find your way back to them. Okay. So I want to go into and I wanted to just say another word here about templates versus reports. So oftentimes people just go in and just make reports, and think of the templates as being only these templates that we have built into the create dialog. And of course, these templates are, in a very real sense, good starting places for creating reports. And as we went into in our session last month, we've got quite a few new reports in here. Workbooks that are built around the ways that we've observed people using MasterMine and Goldmine, and so there's really quite a lot there. If you missed our webinar last month, be sure and go back and see the archived one, which you can get to from our website. These templates are in the what I would say in sort of the crystal reports sense. They are templates. You select one. And when you select that template, you can see the fields. The fields populate and are checked on according to the instructions in that template. You might also have a dialog like this come up where it asks you for a specific entry, asks the user for a particular entry that will help to shape what's going to be in this report. So in this case, what goldmine field contains the base date after which history items will be included, because I chose a history since a certain goldmine field date. So if that were the report I were doing, it would want to know, I would need to enter into it a field that makes sense. I'll actually go ahead and fill this in. I've got one called udemo, I think, in here. And then you might get another dialog in here where it asks you, for example, what activity types do you want to include in this report? Let's just do calls and appointments that happened since that particular date, that date for whatever record you're looking at. Okay, so that create dialog that has templates built into it that are like that. Now, the next step and kind of the logical thing that I want to go with this is really, because of that save as capability, every MasterMine report is in effect also a template, meaning it's easy to rearrange the fields that are in the report. It's easy now with functionality inside of Excel to add additional fields from Goldmine if you didn't include them originally, or to delete fields if they're unnecessary. Really, every MasterMine workbook is its own kind of repeatable template because of the save as functionality and all that control that you have inside of Excel of what's there. So tend to think, what I want to do is suggest that you tend to think expansively of what is a template, what is a MasterMine template for a report. And having said all that, I'm not even going to go into much about this save as template thing, except to say it is possible to create new templates for this list by making field selections here, giving your report another unique name, and hitting save as template. I mentioned that because for some users, especially ones that frequently or almost always in their reporting want to have certain user-defined fields in a standard create report scenario, can just check those fields on one time, create a new template for those, and have that template be a starting point. Okay, so those are 3 different kinds of templates. I hesitated even to throw the last one in, but I think the main point is made. All right, let's go on to what I think is really the meat of this thing, and this is the launch dialog and how best to use that. When you create MasterMine reports, the save to path, of course, there's only one save to path for creating new reports. I want to point this out before I go to the launch dialog, only because I want to indicate that this is in a sense a default location for where you save things, but your launch dialog really expands out where you might go with this. So I'm going to cancel this one and go ahead and bring up the MasterMine launch dialog. Okay, so all of you are probably well aware of what happens when you click on your MasterMine toolbar item, and it brings up the launch dialog. So here's some things about this that you may not know. On the left-hand side here, of course, we have the web or the Windows subfolder tree within which you have saved MasterMine reports at any given time. So in other words, the nodes that are at the end of this tree, MasterMine reports, this node is actually a Windows folder called MasterMine reports within the My Documents folder in MasterMine, or in Windows. And of course, the My Documents folder is a built-in Windows folder that has a higher up hierarchy. Now, we don't necessarily have to go all the way back to a root folder of a drive if we had been creating reports that go to a map drive. And I'll actually illustrate this here a little bit later. But if there were some reports saved on our C drive and some on a network location, you would see both of those listed here on the left, and you would see the whole subfolder that's within those. What's actually here is obviously not everything that's in Windows. What is here is only paths where the end node actually has some MasterMine workbooks in it. So that's what you will see, and specifically MasterMine workbooks that have been opened or used by the current Windows user. So I'm logged into Excel here, into Windows as Rob. So only this Windows user Rob under this profile would I find this particular tree over here, because this matches my own, the places where I have saved MasterMine workbooks to. Now, another thing to know about that is over on the right-hand side, even though I said it only shows the locations where I have saved or opened a MasterMine workbook from in the past, only one of these might be mine, not necessarily all of them. I might have more than one person in my company who's saving reports to the same location. I'm still going to see every Excel workbook that's in that folder. So whether or not it was me who created that particular report, all the Excel workbooks in that folder will show up here, so they're all available to me to open up here. The reason that's important is if you've got people who are sharing responsibility, multiple MasterMine users who create MasterMine reports or who share them with other people, organizing them within Windows is going to be, well, it's our topic for today, but it's also crucial for help for managing those reports. So it's good to know that everything that you see here is really every Excel workbook that's in the folder. Okay, let's see, I think I talked about that as much as I wanted to. So I mentioned before that the most recently used folder is the one that comes up on top. So, and I wanted to sort of illustrate this. I'm going to go down someplace lower in my hierarchy here. So this is, we've got two branches of the C Documents and Settings folder. One of them goes to my particular user profile documents folder, and the other goes to the all users documents folder. This just happens to be how I have saved MasterMine reports. What I'm about to illustrate here could affect you also if you have, let's say, a network folder that you're saving to, as well as your local drive. What I want to illustrate is this. I'm going to open a file, a report here. Let's do sales versus goals here. I'm going to open this report, and it resides down here in the all users folder. The all users branch of the Documents and Settings folder under Executive Dashboards. What I want to illustrate is I'm going to go ahead and open this, then I'm going to close it, I'm going to come up and I'm going to launch this dialog again. And what I want to show you is by doing that, it will remember that this was the most recent file that I had open, and therefore this node, Executive Dashboards, will be the one that comes up on top. And that's important because basically what we're aiming to do is have it be easy for you to retrieve your most commonly used, certainly your most recently used, but also your most commonly used MasterMine reports, to be able to bring them up and easily find them and so on. So I've just opened up the sales versus goals MasterMine report. I won't go into the content of this one, but it's pretty cool. I'll go ahead and save it, and I'll close it again. Okay, so, and of course my launch dialog closed when I opened up that workbook. So now when I go and recall the launch dialog, what you see is this has become somewhat inverted. So now the top tree, extending over here to Executive Dashboards, where that workbook is that I just opened, is the top tree is now the one where I worked most recently, and the one that used to be the top tree, which was down here, is now down below. Now this also comes out this way for another reason, which I'm going to get to here, which is MasterMine Reports is our default folder. Now in many cases you may not have a default folder yet for your in your branch. It's good to have a default folder. It just says this is the one that I select by default, or this is the one that's selected when the workbook opens up, or sorry, when the launch dialog opens up. But that won't necessarily be the one where you had a workbook open most recently. Which, as I illustrated, is up there. Okay. Now we get down to what I think is the real crucial thing, and that is how do you organize these folders and subfolders. My very strong recommendation is to think in advance of there being, in advance of a bunch of subfolders getting created kind of willy-nilly by different users, is to think ahead about what is the best way to organize your MasterMine reports, especially among people who share. So I've kind of put together an example here of where we've got sort of a master hub MasterMine workbook, or MasterMine folder, excuse me, and then within it are subfolders: Executive Dashboard, Sales Management, Marketing Management. I did this for a reason. So this would be a situation where you've got a MasterMine workbook where the subfolders are departments or functions within the company. And then within that, you might then have subfolders. In this case, IntelliClick is a subfolder of marketing management, and so on. Or you might do subfolders where they actually are people's names. So under sales management, maybe what we have is the individual sales reps, or the sales manager and the sales administrator, having separate folders within there. I'll get here to a moment about how you can use this dialog to actually create that hierarchy. But what I want to indicate here is just that's one logical hierarchy. I've got an example of a second one here, and I just wanted to actually I wanted to bring up a visual of that. Let me switch over to PowerPoint here again for just a second here. So here's a, I didn't mean for this to be quite so, to have to go up click by click, but so this is a similar example to the one we were just looking at in my demo system. So MasterMine reports as the hub, within it several different departments, and then within the departments individuals' names. So that's one way to think of possibly doing that. And you will set that up hopefully you'll think through how you want to do it, then go ahead and set up your Windows folders, and I'll show you here in a moment about how you can use the MasterMine dialog to do that, and then just save those files, your new reports to those locations, and for your existing ones you'll be able to actually drag and drop and sort them into those folders, which I'll illustrate here in a moment. Before I do that, just a second example of a possible way of doing this. This is actually an inverse of the same one, but I wanted to give the logic for why you might want to do it this way. MasterMine reports tend to be kind of personal, tend to be, the way I lay out my report that shows me the overall sales forecast may not be the way my sales manager wants to see the sales forecast. So having a report that's called sales forecast that just sits in the main MasterMine reports folder is going to get confusing for us pretty quickly. Whose is it? What are we doing with it? I've seen where people will actually attach their own names into the file name itself in order to differentiate. That does work, although I would suggest that this kind of arrangement might be a better way of going about that. Okay, so I won't belabor that point too much. Back to here. Okay, so let's talk about some of that functionality for organizing these. So let's say you decide that within your MasterMine folder you are actually going to do, you're going to have a tree that's like this: executive dashboard, sales management, and so on. Now, I've already got this one. Some of these already exist, but I want to illustrate a couple of things here. So one of the things I'll do is create a new empty folder within MasterMine, and when I do that, I basically will be creating a new folder in Windows within that tree as well. So it's really nothing more than directing Windows to make that new folder and show it to us here. So, and the way to do that is right-click on the node within which you want to create a new subfolder, and voila, there's one of your choices here. So there's a short menu for the left-hand side. There's also a short menu for the right-hand side, and I'll talk about both of these. So if I want to create a new subfolder, let's say we've got a new department that we want to cover over here. It's going to be our production department. So I'm going to say new subfolder, type the name, production, and having created a folder like that, obviously it's empty, but maybe I've already made some production reports that exist over here in my main MasterMine folder. And again, think about this in terms of, for yourself, when you start to make these subfolders and you want to rearrange things, you want to rearrange your existing reports, you'd be able to do this. So let's suppose some of these reports I already had created for the production department, and we've got a custom profiles, and so I'm going to drag that over there. And you can see it's just a matter of selecting it, or even I could take several of them all at a time and drag them down here and put them in the production folder. That removes them from the main folder and puts them down there under production. So obviously those are not for that purpose, but I just sort of did that for illustration. So with that functionality, you should be able to pretty quickly not just figure out how you want to organize them, but get them organized by dragging them to those locations. Now the production folder itself is not going to show up the next time I open this the launch dialog, unless I actually have the experience of opening or saving an Excel MasterMine workbook to that location. Let me go ahead and illustrate that again. I'm going to go ahead and launch that launch the launch dialog. So you see, production does not come up within that folder, just as any other folders that exist in that hierarchy that we've never used. Oh, I'm sorry, production did show up there. All right. So I stand corrected. And I guess the reason is because I used this dialog for creating it, it remembers that location. So that's good. I'm still going to illustrate this next function that I was going to show you, which is that you may, let's say in Windows, you may have created other folders within there that MasterMine doesn't yet know about. That's okay. If you use this item that says show subfolders, what it does is basically show you every subfolder of the node that you're on there. So when I click that, we see a couple of new ones come up here. There's one called GM Demo, another one called Video, that actually contain some Excel workbooks, but they just didn't happen to be saved there by MasterMine, or they may have been saved there, and this is actually a crucial point, they may have been saved there by another MasterMine user, but because I, as a MasterMine user, have never opened up a workbook in this folder or saved one to that folder, it doesn't show up in my hierarchy tree. This is a little bit complicated right now, but I think what you'll find that when you're actually getting into working with it, all of this makes a good deal of logical sense about why you want to have these capabilities. Okay. Did we almost cover that? I think we did. Okay, so that's pretty much the. So I mentioned. So I talked about new subfolder and show subfolders. Delete folder is a pretty obvious one. It is even possible to delete not only the folder itself from the tree, but also the files that are in it. If I were to hit delete folder there, it actually asks me, do I want to delete that folder and the files that are in it? If I say yes, it will go ahead and wholesale delete those. By the way, that makes, there's sort of a management trick here, which is to, rather than just simply one by one or mass delete a whole bunch of files, what you can do is other folder. That's kind of what we use this junk folder for here. One way of kind of doing that in a staged process, so you're a little bit careful, and then once you have sorted all the ones that you're thinking of deleting into your junk folder, you get one last chance to kind of look through them all and make sure that that's what you want to, that you want to get rid of all of them, then delete it. This process is very nice for doing that. However, it's also possible just simply to say, well, everything in the production folder, I didn't really want those anyway. I'll go ahead and delete those. In fact, I'm going to. These are old ones we haven't looked at in many years. Okay, so that got rid of it on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, they're still visible, but of course, now they're gone once I click onto another folder. And maybe to illustrate the point, I'll also show all subfolders here to indicate that there is no more production folder here. Okay, so important distinction between hide folder and delete folder. So hide folder just simply says, okay, this one that I just now showed that has this other stuff, I'm not really interested in having it be in my hierarchy there. I'm going to hide that one. And then it does explain or it reminds me, am I sure I want to hide this one? So just so they don't appear here, no files will be deleted. Yes, I do. There's another thing that happens there, which is if I had, maybe this is actually sort of an important one. Sometimes that hide feature is useful if what you wanted to do is just simply have a certain location not come up anymore automatically in the launch dialog. So in other words, you're basically telling MasterMine, forget that I ever opened a report in that location, or that I saved a report to that location, and just don't bring it up in the launch dialog until I tell you to again. So we could, for example, take this entire folder and say hide, and if we do that, then the next time I run the launch dialog, it would not show up here, even though I had in the past opened files in that location. So that essentially helps you to manage that combination of things that I just showed you helps you to manage what shows up in your tree on the left-hand side, which nodes show up. Okay, and then finally on the right-hand side, the functionality that's over here, I also already talked about drag and drop. There is open, which is essentially, oh, got things a little bit out of line there. Did I just go off of it? Oh, by the way, you know, this dialog does stretch and close. Okay, people have wondered about that. You can actually make it larger or even make it the full size of the screen. Short menu. Open does the same thing as double-clicking on the report. So double-click on these, of course, they open up in MasterMine. Renaming is obvious. Deleting it, pretty obvious. Copy path to clipboard. The purpose of that is so that, let's say you really want to just tell a colleague, you've saved a report to a certain location, you want to tell a colleague where they can find this MasterMine report. If you just do copy path to, well, then if you can't open the keyboard or the clipboard, it won't work, but let me do this again. Okay, so that, I don't know why the clipboard wasn't working there, but so what it copied was not just the name of this, but it copied the entire path, C:/Rob/my documents/MasterMine reports / all pending.xlsm, all into my clipboard, so that if I wanted to, you know, send an email to my colleague, and wouldn't you know, I pick one that doesn't have an email address, that's okay. And, you know, that would be what I would, you know, dear so-and-so, here's the path to that report that I was telling you about. Or you could copy and paste it in order to build a toolbar item, which I'll also go into. Okay, so that, I believe, covers the functionality in the launch dialog. Hopefully, if you've got any questions, they've come up.
I am just going to tell you one.
Okay.
When files are moved into different folders, how do you deal with the reports that have been shared with other people and they have a link when they open MasterMine?
Great question. So they're talking about the link up here in the toolbars. That is a great example of where okay, so those will not be automatically updated in the toolbars. These are two completely separate processes. So really good question. If I move files from here to there, those existing toolbar links are no longer, or taskbar links, are no longer going to be valid for those users that have had one-button launches set up for them. So my best answer is if you do that, you're either going to need to rebuild those one-button launches for them, and we'll talk a little bit about how those get built, or go into the customize dialog and manually fix them, manually point them to the new location, in which case this copy path to clipboard and customize would be very useful. Or have them use basically tell them, you know, use this launch dialog and default to their, you know, their main folder, or default to a carefully selected folder, so that when they open the launch dialog, it simply comes up with their reports already in there, ready to go, and then the launch dialog would become their new default way of getting to them, as opposed to using the taskbar items. Hopefully one of those solutions is a satisfactory one. By the way, I also want to point this out because oftentimes I see people don't really recognize it. Recently used keeps track of your 10 most recently used MasterMine reports. So even if you are used to using the taskbar launch, or you're used to you know, navigating through to find the ones that you want here, those are both useful way to launch MasterMine reports. A third useful way is to just simply go to your recently used ones. The top one is the most recently used. The 10th one is the 10th most recently used workbook. Okay, and that is most recently used by the current Windows user on this machine. Okay, any other questions there, Carnegie?
Just, can you illustrate the changing a path?
On the taskbar? Yes, I'm actually going to go into the whole taskbar thing right now.
Beautiful.
Okay, So with that beautiful segue, we'll go on to taskbar. Okay, so many of you are familiar with having reports deployed to an individual user on the taskbar inside of Goldmine, but you may not be familiar with how this works. And this is really a Goldmine function. The taskbar is a built-in Goldmine function. If the person doesn't have that turned on, let's go right to the basics, which is I right-clicked up here in an empty space in the top. Taskbar is a function that you turn on and turn off, and by default, it's not turned on. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it on here. And what the user sees when they turn it on is essentially a tree of possible things that can be launched from the taskbar. Now, in our case, everything that you see here, I think, yes, everything you see here is a MasterMine report, but that's not necessarily all that can be up on taskbars. Really, it can be, there's quite a lot of other things. And you can manage that, all of that through the Customize button. Now, this Customize button will only show up for master users of Goldmine. If you're not a master user, you don't have Customize, so you can't pick and choose what shows up in these menus, but somebody can manage it there for you. So if I go to Customize, and let's just take our sales management group. So each of the horizontal bars here corresponds to let's call it a menu up here on the taskbar, or well, we'll call it a group since that's their nomenclature. So this is a group, and then within it is 1, 2, 3, 4, in this case could be up to, I think, 10 or 12 different items. And each of these is what we call a one-button launch for a MasterMine report. And again, the way that works under sales management is you just click on sales management and you would have the list of the 5 things or so that are under it. You click on the top one and that would launch your report. How do you manage these? Well, let's say, take for example, sales versus goals here. So here's a report that, it's actually, what it is really is a launch item. So the customized dialog allows you to, well, you can actually change how it displays here so you can see more of them. So I'm going to right click on the top one there, and so there's several things you can do. Add a new item to the taskbar. In fact, you could build individual MasterMine one-button launches just by copying the syntax that we use in these other ones. So you could actually manually add them here. There is, of course, a button in the MasterMine dialog, or sorry, in the MasterMine menu in Excel that runs a dialog and actually implants these into any user's taskbar. So the trick there basically is you have to have the report in question open in your Excel, and then from your Excel hit a button that creates a one-button launch like this for either yourself or for any other Goldmine user, just by going through the dialog. So in the example of where we were mentioning before about when I reorganize those reports and move them to a different location, if you do that, it probably also behooves you to go ahead and have that user, or do it for them, remove the old items that don't fit, and then just go through those one by one, go through the other ones one by one, and create new launch items to the taskbar. That's another solution, if you really want to continue to use the taskbar for them. Okay, so and then the other possibility is to just edit the ones that are there. So let's say I had moved that. Oops, I didn't mean to launch that. What I meant to do was right-click on it and hit Edit. So this is the dialog for managing taskbar items, and so what you'll see here is that in every case, the MasterMine dialog for launching is pretty much the same. There's the caption, the unique caption for that report. Then under Application, it's just the MasterMine application. And that is where the MasterMine application, the MasterMine EXE, is on this local machine. It's almost always going to be C program files MasterMine or C program files x86 MasterMine.exe. The start directory would be the same, and then the command line for it, this is sort of the key part, is /l, as in launch, and then a semicolon, and then the rest of it, starting at the C here, the rest of it is the path to the workbook. So if you remember back there in the launch dialog, it was possible to right-click on a workbook and put into the clipboard this path to the workbook. One way to approach this is to actually go to the taskbar of the user and customize it, and just go in here and change this command line so that it points to the new location of the report that's in question. And if that user only has 3 or 5 or something, small number of these reports going from their taskbar, that would be a kind of a quick and easy way to repair these so that they do actually point to the right location. And then finally, I've never actually covered this, I don't think, in a MasterMine webinar before. You probably have noticed that by default, all of these have the same icon on them, but every once in a while it's useful to differentiate the icons, in part just to make it easier to quickly pick out the report that you want, using another visual cue. So what I just did was, to kind of recap that, I opened Customize, I went to the group that I wanted, I right-clicked on the item I wanted to change, and I hit Edit Item. Okay, the rest of this dialog is pretty straightforward. You can add a whole new group, and then within that group, add new items. I won't go into, well, actually, I will do one thing here. So if you do decide that you want to manually add these, the thing to remember is there's actually a number of the taskbars are actually one of my favorite Goldmine features, because it really does give you the ability with a few number of clicks to accomplish a number of different things. So you can actually take any item that's on the main menu and make it a one-button launch by doing this. That's the default when you go to create a new item here. You can also, if you've got macros defined in your Goldmine, or you know how to create macros, you can launch those from in here. External application is the one that we use for MasterMine launches. Again, caption is the name of the report, application is the MasterMine executable, and the command line is that /L:, and then the path to the file, to the Excel workbook. Document link, this also allows you to do just simpler links to Excel or Word documents, where when you need them, you just simply, it just pops them up. And finally, website, you can put URLs in here again, where you would just go up and choose them, and it would pop that go right to that website. It's a useful little function inside of Goldmine that I think is pretty underused. Okay, so that is my coverage of taskbars, and brings us pretty close to the end here. Let's go over my list here, make sure that I've covered everything. Yes, I think I have. All right, so Carnegie, if there's any questions about taskbars or about things generally that we covered?
I'm not seeing any questions.
Okay, great. I must have been just crystal clear, I guess. All right, so if you do have questions, go ahead and put them in the dialogue while we wrap up our meeting for today. You need to be present to win the drawing of a free half-hour thing, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the drawing right now. Carnegie, if there's just one last call for questions or comments before I switch over for the drawing.
I'll go ahead and switch over, and
okay,
let's do it. Hit questions after that.
And whoops, let's go back over here. All right, 2-hour drawing. So once again, this is an opportunity to win a free half-hour of online MasterMine support by appointment, and you can use that for report writing, for updating Goldmine data or massaging data, doing anything sensible that needs doing. Doing data analysis, system process design, anything that MasterMine relates to, we are happy to use that time with you to expand on that. And again, of course, if you're not our lucky winner, go to mastermine.net under user support, which is a menu item at the top, and you can see what our options are for getting MasterMine live online support. All right, so with that, Carnegie, let's choose our lucky winner.
Let's do this. Okay. Our winner today is Leonard Phipps.
Leonard Phipps, congratulations. And
we will give you a call after the webinar and just confirm that you knew you're the winner, and let you know when it expires and all that good stuff.
Okay. Alrighty, so I'll just bring up the last slide here and say thank you all very much for your time today. Glad that I was able to get this topic covered. I hope that you found this useful. Whether you did or did not, we'd love to hear your feedback. So anything that you have to say about how we do our monthly meetings, as well as any suggestions, maybe most importantly, any suggestions you have for other topics you would like for us to cover relating to Goldmine and MasterMine together, please send us those by email or put them in the survey that you will see when you drop out of this meeting. So our contact information is up there. And one last call, Carnegie, if there's any questions to cover.
No questions.
All right, then. Thank you all very much for your time, and we'll look forward to seeing you next month.
Bye, everyone.